Hi, art friends. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Haver. I'm the director of Artist Commons, an online year-long artist development program for early and mid-career visual artists. I'm sure many of you have read through the website and gotten excited about what our program has to offer, and I'm excited to go through today and give you a peek into how our program works in more detail, let you get to know some of our faculty, who teach particularly in our philosophy of art lectures, and one of our mentors, as well as hear from students and their experiences in being a part of this program over the last 5 months. So let's dive in. Our outline for today is what Artist Commons is. First of all, the program's purpose, its structure, its philosophy. Second is who it's designed for. Which is what is the experience level of the artists that we're looking at, and what disciplines are they working in, and what makes someone ready to be a part of a cohort in our program. The third thing we'll look at today is how it works overall, what it means to be a part of a cohort, to receive feedback as part of that, the personal mentorship component that we have, and the weekly lectures and panels and interviews that artists can participate in. And the fourth thing we'll cover is the cost and application. Right? We're a tuition-based education program for artists. We're not a residency. That's really important. We strongly believe that artists should get paid for participating in residencies. You should either get paid or get access to space. We're not that. We are an education program and therefore tuition-based. We have some scholarships available, which I'll go over in detail at the end, and then we'll touch on key dates and next steps. The big question when I was creating Artist Commons last year was, what would a year of honest, in-depth support do for your art practice? It's really a question that's driven me. I've spent the last several years working as a curator. I ran a digital art platform. Before that, I ran a fine art photo studio for over a decade. And before that, I worked as a filmmaker. I assistant directed indie features. I've also worked at the college level for many years, teaching lens-based art and media. And as I did studio visits with artists as part of my curatorial practice, I kept hearing artists asking the same sets of questions, right? There's a gap that many artists face. You're working hard in your studio, but often without enough of the things you need to actually grow. You're missing feedback that's honest and specific and ongoing. You're missing a structure that gives you a consistent studio rhythm and the accountability to keep making work, to just keep showing up in the studio day after day. A community of peers is often missing. Not just peers, though, peers who understand your work and who push you forward. Like, this is different from simply our friends who give us a few kind words. This is consistent feedback, not just likes on post, which is for what a long time as an artist was having to respond to. Like, oh, I guess that work was good because it got 21 likes and that other one got 100. Oh, I should do more of that then. What does it mean to have a group of peers who understand the questions you're asking your work and push you forward, and in a way that's actionable? And then the last thing that's often missing when we're working alone in our studios is guidance and a professional perspective on your goals and your direction. We're lucky if we get a curator or a gallerist to come by and do a studio visit. But that is often a one-off event. Not everyone who is in those careers has the skills to help someone find direction and set goals and then achieve those things. And many artists are asking the questions I found, like, what is my work really about? How do I build a consistent studio rhythm? How do I talk about my work clearly? How do I know which opportunities are right for me? And how do I stay motivated when no one else is checking in? Artist Commons creates a year-long structure for asking those questions with real support behind every one of them. In truth, Artist Commons is designed to help artists move from isolated effort to sustained artistic growth. As many of you have probably read on the website, but for those of you that haven't, Artist Commons is a year-long online artist development program. It's built for visual artists who want to get more serious about their work. And every accepted artist is placed in a small cohort, paired with a dedicated mentor, and welcomed into this broader community of artists and art professionals. The program combines a lot of different aspects into one unit. I found in my practice that a lot of the education that I was doing for myself, a lot of the training was very piecemeal, and I was doing it alone. I would dip into a class, I'd have something for a community for maybe 5 weeks, but then I was piecing it together, and it was difficult for me to feel a sense of momentum to what I was doing and to have people who were invested in my long-term growth without paying an arm and a leg for an MFA. And so we put together a program that combines some of the best elements of so many different programs I've been a part of over the years, either as a teacher or as a student, and took the best of all of that to combine it into one year-long program, which makes this really beautiful, large container in which people can get the smorgasbord of many things. And artists who come to us are in different stages of their career. And so these are designed to meet people where they're at and for you to find the pieces that fit well with what you need at this particular moment in your personal growth as an artist. So these include weekly feedback sessions, one-on-one mentorship, lectures and panels and interviews. We do 2 of those per week. We have visiting artists and residents who come in. That's the residency part. We are students in the program, but we have visiting artists and residents who come in and spend 5 weeks with the students doing several sessions, which we'll get into more detail on soon. We do portfolio reviews, writing clinics. Right now, our students currently in the program are very much working on their artist statements and how to refine the language that they use around that so that their practice and what their goals are and the questions they're asking in their practice are legible when they are talking with curators, when they're applying to open calls and residencies and grant applications. Writing is such a big part of how we present ourselves, and we love workshopping that material with artists. We also do reading and discussion groups, real community building elements. And then I think for all of that education, the community itself is not to be underrated. It's both a community and a network of peers who grow with you. And as opposed to the 5-week class, you're all learning the same things, learning in the same direction simultaneously. And so you get to have conversations about what you've learned ongoing over a longer period of time. And as our artists meet up in person at various IRL meetups, which we do occasionally, either gathered around particular art events like an art fair or a particular exhibition. We just had a meetup in Lisbon. There were several artists over there for an event. And that you get to discuss the things that you've been learning and have a level of conversation that I think is really unique and special because you've all been learning and engaging with the same material simultaneously. So who Artist Commons is for? It's for both early and mid-career visual artists, with or without art school backgrounds, right? You don't have to have an MFA to apply to this. And it's for people who want thoughtful feedback, clearer goals in their practice, and a better understanding of the contemporary art world and the business of art. Tucked within that one sentence paragraph are a bunch of really important ideas about the program. The first is our cohort structure is built around various experience levels, pairing people by experience level, and so that you can have the level of conversation that you want to have around your art. So artists who are at the beginning of their career are often paired together by their career and experience level. Artists who are more early and mid-career and have started getting shows and getting to show work, they're often paired together in a way that they get to have the level of discussion that they want to have around their work. The program's also built for whether you have an MFA or not, or whether you went to undergrad for art or not. If you went to school for art, you may have focused on just your craft, and they may not have taught you very much about the business side of art and what it means to be part of the contemporary art world and try to engage with it. So this can be a really good program for people who never learned that in art school, or for the people who never went and would really like to learn that. You've been making it up as you go, getting your knowledge piecemeal. So we help with that. And for those that have or haven't gotten an MFA, the cohort experience, I think, is something really special. So even if you've gotten an MFA, it can be really amazing to get that back in your life in some way. All disciplines are welcome within the program. These include obvious art disciplines like painting and drawing, illustration, sculpture, installation, performance art, photography, video art, light-based art and projection. We have a bunch of artists in the program who focus on various tech-based art and new media art practices, as well as things that are more interdisciplinary, conceptual, and experimental. And Artist Commons is open to all of them, working across a wide range of visual practices. It's worth saying, though, who the program may not be for, and answering that for yourself as you're listening now. Right? Artist Commons is a hands-on, high-touch program for artists looking to actively participate. And this program might not be the right fit for you if you only want passive video lessons at your own pace. There are lots of video library programs on the internet. We are a high-touch, interactive program. You might not be the right fit if you can't reliably attend live cohort sessions each week, or if you aren't ready or willing to receive feedback on your work. For some artists, you reach a point in your career where you know what you're about, and you have a direction, you know what you're making, and feedback is not part of what you need. Our cohorts are centered around feedback, and so if that's not something you're looking for, it might not be a good fit for you then. And the last thing is, if you just want a shortcut instead of a sustained development process. This is about going deep and over the long term, over the course of a year. And I love that because, again, I've done so many self-taught, autodidact classes online. I've taken hundreds of courses through lynda.com and various Kajabi platform classes. And at the end of the day, I learn a ton, but it's not necessarily the knowledge that I'm only looking for. I'm looking for someone who can mentor, and I'm looking for a community of peers. So Artist Commons is best for artists who are ready to reflect honestly on their work and direction, to participate actively on a weekly basis, to revise work and respond to feedback, and who want to bond with a community of peers. The program is structured around 3 key pillars. The first is cohorts and mentors. This includes personal feedback and one-on-one guidance. The second is our amazing set of lectures and panels/interviews with guest speakers from around the art world. Key topics include the business of art, the philosophy of art, and the history of art, of modern and contemporary art movements. And the third pillar is our visiting artists in residence, who provide not just inspiration, but also a peer behind their studio door into their process. We get to really engage with what it means for these successful working contemporary artists to build a long-term practice and to help guide us through that. So together, these 3 pillars create a complete environment for artistic development that is both personal, professional, and inspirational. So the first pillar in a little more detail. Every artist is placed in a small cohort of about 10 artists with similar experience levels, alongside a dedicated mentor. This becomes your core group for the entire year. And over time, they come to know your work and your goals and the questions you're exploring. Feedback builds session to session. You're never just starting from scratch. We are hitting month 5 for our current batch of cohorts that started in January. We have new cohorts that start every January and July right now. And for them, something so magical has happened in the last 6 weeks where I really see them starting to gel together as a group in a way that the feedback they're offering to one another is so precise and with so much care. And it has not just warmed my heart, but is confirmed for me why a year-long program makes so much sense for artists who want to go deeper with their practice, to find a community of peers who can go deeper with you. This is a big difference from a 5-week class or a summer workshop. You build over time, and the feedback becomes less general and more specific to you. Our cohort feedback sessions are 2 hours long. They're held live online, as all of our program is. And each week, 2 artists present per session. That's a lot of time given to your art and thinking about it deeply. So you have to have a practice where every 5 weeks, you feel like you're going to have new work to show. And the cohorts give the accountability to keep showing up in your studio and making work so that you have something to show. So some of us, we work best within a program with accountability and structure. This can be a good kick in the pants to get in there and make. Our feedback sessions are built around a really consistent feedback structure to scaffold our looking. We aren't here to simply say, oh, I like this, I don't like that. We always build from what's strong in the work to what could be stronger. And everyone shares actionable feedback as a result. The feedback we get isn't simply about personal opinion and taste, though it is always rooted in that when it comes to art, but we've put together a really structured time that I think sidesteps a lot of the problems of traditional crits in art schools, which have a lot of trauma around them, if I'm being honest. I still hold on to sentences that people said to me 20 years ago, and those hurt. And we've built it, a lot of times those sentences weren't constructive, they weren't actionable feedback, and we've tried to build a structure that always gets us to actionable feedback through a lot of silent looking and doing feedback in stages. We also have one-on-one mentor meetings. We do one of these per quarter. This is a chance to go deeper. These conversations might include things like artistic direction and long-term goals, studio habits and building a sustainable practice, portfolio development and design. That's been one of my favorite things we've been doing recently. People bring their PDF of work or a folder of images, and we sit there sequencing, cutting, adding new things, thinking about the narrative that you're trying to tell about yourself. Because a portfolio at its best is not an archive, right? It is an argument trying to persuade someone to a particular goal that you're after right now at this moment in your career. I already mentioned we're workshopping artist statements right now. We also work on application materials and professional next steps and career questions that don't fit neatly into the cohort session time. So one-on-one mentorship meetings give artists space to discuss their broader practice. And the purpose is to help you connect in many ways with the day-to-day work, your day-to-day work with your longer term development. The second pillar, as I said, is our weekly lectures, panels, and interviews. These are program-wide lectures and interviews that bring guest speakers from across the art world in to speak with students and help them build professional fluency. We do 2 of these per week. They generally take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Recent guest speakers have included David Shine, who's an art lawyer, talking about copyright law and the importance of protecting your work and how easy it is to do that. We don't have to send ourselves things in the mail anymore like I used to think we did. Next week, we have the national art critic for ArtNet News and host of the podcast The Art Angle, Ben Davis, coming in to speak to our students. A couple months ago, we had Sarah Rothberg, an artist and educator who teaches at NYU's ITP program, talk about creativity and ways of unlocking that in our practice to shake us out of our routines, essentially. We've had a great lineup of additional curators. We've had a former Sotheby's director from Paris, a director of galleries here in New York where I'm based, and it's been really inspiring to hear from working professionals from their experiences. And there's something special about these conversations that happen when they're in the setting of a classroom rather than just on a podcast. Topics, as I've mentioned, include the business of art. This could be pricing, editioning, curator outreach, how to read and negotiate a gallery contract if you're ever so lucky. Art history and the philosophy of art are big anchors for us, connecting past to present and providing inspiration to go further with your practice, to essentially learn how to build on the shoulders of giants. The way I was taught art history, you just kind of start at the beginning and you work your way forward. We very much bounce between things that are in the past of the last 150 years and contemporary artists working today to see how they are building on art history. Art history is something that is living, that we can dialogue with, that we can argue with and disagree with, things that we can borrow from for inspiration, and how we can think about putting ourselves in that lineage. So when art history textbooks are written about this decade and the next one, right, we can sit within that arc. A third topic is writing about your work, artist statements, but also pitches and applications, how to get your work out there, how to pursue opportunities. And then finally, navigating the art world, the galleries, the institutions, the alternative spaces, and audience building that we all need to do now in our very much interconnected world. Again, like I said, these are topics that if you never got an MFA or if you did, are applicable to your practice. And students lead these conversations with better questions and stronger language and a clearer sense of what's possible and how to pursue that for themselves. The third pillar is visiting artists in residence. Visiting artists share their work, their process, and career experiences. They let us peer behind their studio door. These are the parts that are missing when you see the work on a gallery wall in a lot of ways. Right? How did it get here? What did it mean to build this career? Why do these curators care about this person? What are the questions that they've been interrogating within their own practice, not just with the work that's currently on the wall, but over the last several years? These sessions with the visiting artists in residence, and we do 3 of them. We do a presentation of their body of work. They come in a couple weeks later and do a process lecture, which is different what the form that takes for every artist we've had in. And the third is a candid interview in which they talk about what it means to build a long-term career in the arts. So we go from the what have they made to the how have they made it to the how do I get anyone to care. They really present a roadmap of what it means to build a career in the arts, which for me just demystifies the process and makes it, in my hubris, feel accessible, like a thing that I can pursue. And that's all we need, just a little bit of belief that we can keep going. And these artists, having them come in to speak to the students on a regular monthly basis has been incredible for accomplishing that. This year is structured into 4 10-week quarters. We take 2 weeks off between quarters, kind of give a nice little reset, a breather, and we take an extra 2 weeks off for summer. So our cohorts that are about to start will have a 5-week start to the quarter, then a 2-week break, then be back for the second half of this quarter. Year 2, we have new mentors come in, new guest speakers from around the art world. And because our program is built in a very modular way with working practitioners, about 70% of the material year to year is new. For those that want to, that go through the experience of 1 year as they're getting toward the end, we start that discussion of, is this something that would continue to benefit you into the future? So what a sample week looks like. We have our live lectures and panels twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Visiting artist talks take place in some of those same slots. Cohort feedback sessions once per week. And then on Sundays, 4 times per quarter, we do some optional discussion group activities. We also have a custom community app that we use to connect throughout the week, and that conversation is just ongoing. So this adds up to about 5 to 6 hours of material per week. It's a really rich, robust program. This is not parceled out in small bits. This is for people who want to go deep, encounter new ideas, share work, receive feedback, and get momentum for their practice. We do both live and async. So the live, the required mandatory parts are our weekly cohort feedback sessions. And then our smaller discussion-based sessions are only live. We don't record those because they're based in breakout rooms and they're discussions between students. The dates and times on which weekly cohorts feedback sessions take place are in the application, which I'll step through toward the end. That application section, you basically check, there are a whole list of days and times, you check the boxes next to which ones fit your schedule. And as we review applications and try to pair people together based on experience level and discipline, we start to see some alignment start to happen in terms of the different days and times for each group. So the key question here is, can you reliably attend your weekly cohort session? The other material all happens live, but it is also recorded, and so it can be experienced asynchronously and therefore flexibly. These include the Tuesday, Thursday lectures and panels, which are recorded and available for replay, as well as transcripts, PDFs of the slides, and other resources in the community app. So the program is designed to be both robust and help you go deep, but also fit into your everyday life. It doesn't require taking out quite the same chunk of time that doing grad school would. The community app that we use. It's an online space to keep the conversation and connections going between sessions. And students use it to share work in progress, continue cohort conversations and lecture discussions, access recordings for lectures you missed, find resources and opportunities, and stay connected to the broader Artist Commons community. So the app helps the program feel like more than just a weekend workshop. And that's what's most important to us, building community and an ongoing conversation. Like I mentioned, the cohorts are formed first by experience level. So feedback is always relevant and generative for everyone. Second, by medium and discipline. We want to balance a diversity of perspectives within each cohort. Most art school education, depending on where you go, and obviously there are many different types of schools, but a lot of it is discipline-based, right? Painters get paired with painters because you want to be learning the technique really, really well. But what happens after you've learned your technique? Then we need to start learning how to practice talking about our work to people outside of our discipline, outside of people who connect with us on the specificity of how well we've done some small detail with our technique, and how instead connect over how the work makes meaning in the world, the kinds of things that curators are often looking for. The third thing we look at in forming cohorts is availability and time zones. So the feedback session meeting times work for everyone in the cohort over the course of the year. And the fourth is group chemistry. Artists generally stay with the same cohort for the full year, and so we want to make sure that people will gel together. If you have someone you know who is applying to the program at the same time as you, you can request to be placed with a friend, and we'll try to accommodate if that's possible based on those many factors I've just described. What students get from the program is momentum and a consistent rhythm to show up for your art practice, confidence, a greater ease talking about your work and your goals because you're doing it every week, clarity, a clearer sense of what to do next in your practice and why, and a network, a broader community of peers and mentors and art world professionals that you can continue to build relationships with and reach out to in the years to come. What sets our program apart, I think, from some of the alternatives starts to become really clear. Right? The alternatives, short workshops, they're brief and there's no continuity. For passive online courses, right, you can watch the material, but you don't get any feedback and you don't get any community in that case. And for an MFA or a residency, right, it's a highly selective threshold to pass. And the second is they're often expensive, inaccessible. They require you to move, in a lot of cases, to a new city to uproot your life. You may have to cut back on the number of hours that you can work to dedicate to the class time and studio time that's required. And they're expensive. They may require you to take on debt to be able to do them, especially at some of the best MFA programs in the country. Artist Commons, in contrast, right, provides critique and feedback, mentorship, this art world education about the practical things of the art world, community, accountability, momentum. And we do that all within inside one accessible program. Artist Commons is very much designed to be generous but rigorous, full of practical, actionable knowledge. It's more sustained than a workshop and honestly more personal than online courses. And as I think some of you are starting to catch on to, more accessible than grad school. It's designed for people who either don't live near one of those places or can't afford them. But if you want to teach, an MFA is still a great thing. We're not a replacement for that, but we can be a stepping stone to that in your journey. We can also meet people where they're at. If you live between major cities, if you live in a country where you don't have a good art school for the type of art that you're making nearby and accessible to you, if you have caregiving responsibilities, a program that's flexible like this that can be done from anywhere in the world for an affordable cost provides a lot of access to people that we think should have access to art education. I was really inspired this semester. We have one student in our program who recently had a baby. She's been doing a lot of residencies and museum shows. She's really accomplished in the work that she's doing. And she knew that she had these, several months after giving birth in which she would be tied to her house, but not wanting to put her art practice on hold. And that's what Artist Commons is for. It's to provide space in which you can learn and grow in those in-between moments in life as well. As I mentioned at the top, I taught college undergrads for 7 years in lens-based art and media. I was actually brought in because of the fine art photography practice and studio that I was running. And they brought me in to start the college's first photography program. So I love building curriculum. The quotes that are on our website come from some of those past students. We'll get to hear in a few minutes from current students in the program, but I just wanted to read you some of these. I went back and read through some of my old evals and found some really lovely things in here. And they really speak to what's important to me in designing educational curriculum. Lauren said, this class challenged me to take my art more seriously and gave me the discipline to be a more intentional and structured artist. The second quote here, I didn't expect the course to be this complete. Other classes I took this year felt superficial by comparison. It is the most I've ever learned in a short period of time. I think at this point, you're starting to get a sense of how Artist Commons is built. It's very much built on that ethos. This is how I approach teaching. Fill a very large container with a very large amount of material, and the things that are relevant for you will rise to the top in your memory when you're working in your studio or going out and talking to people in the art world about your practice. And third quote here, I really like the portfolio critique days and all the feedback. I learned even more than I was expecting. I would take any classes Haver offered in the future, which as a teacher of many, many years is honestly one of the best compliments you can get, that someone wants to take your next class, especially when it is so complete and so intense as some of the other quotes have alluded to. But that's the past. Let's get to some of our, we'll get to some of our current students in just a minute. I want to briefly touch on our faculty, mentors, and guests. Students learn from a diverse range of experienced voices from across the art world, right? We have our visiting artists who are coming in, working practitioners, and we have curators and critics who are coming in. I mentioned Ben Davis. Last quarter, we had the New York Times film critic Alyssa Wilkinson in to speak to the students. We often pair who our guest speakers are in relation to the visiting artists and residents. So we had an artist who was dealing with narrative and interactivity and some filmmaking components. So it made sense to go get a New York Times film critic to come speak to the students. We try to not, again, have the pieces be piecemeal, but to instead add up into a cumulative whole. We have various educators and writers from schools around the world, and then art world professionals, gallery owners, cultural workers, museum professionals, people with practical experience who are on the ground right now, which is why year over year the program will have so much new material for anyone who chooses to not just do 1 year, but to continue with a cohort beyond that, because we are so guest speaker based. Even when we rotate around to the same topic in the following year, the way that they talk about what it means to run a gallery will be different. The way they talk about the concerns of the museum world at this particular moment in time will be different. There's always something new to learn by having working professionals coming in, and we really lean on that. We have a special focus over the next year on technology, creativity, and the future of art in the types of things that we're programming. This comes out of my own curatorial practice, working with artists who have a tech-based practice and are thinking about what is the future of art. So exploring digital art, new tools, and how artists can engage critically and creatively, but critically, most importantly, with emerging systems. This is part of the broader program and not a requirement that everyone care about this topic, but it's to say that this is not your old painting class where we're only going to talk about the old masters, right? We're going to talk about where is contemporary art heading right now. For instance, at Art Basel, in Basel, which is kicking off soon, they have this new section 010 that is very focused on digital art, and they had brought it from and tech-based practice. They did it at Art Basel Miami, they did it in Art Basel Hong Kong with 10 galleries apiece. They've doubled that in size for this new Art Basel in Basel. Right, this is an important question that we all should be engaged with on some level and not shy away from. So how can we think about this critically and at a deep level and also find inspiration from it for what we want to bring into our own practice? Okay, I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to welcome up to the stage some of our past students for a minute to talk about their experience in the program. Then we're going to bring up one of our mentors and lecturers to talk about some of the focus in what she's building before we return to some of our students. And then we'll close out by talking about the application process, some of the brass tacks of that, what we look for in applicants and what makes a strong application. So I'll try to demystify some of that for you guys. Okay, I'm going to pull up Michael Perez here. Michael, thank you so much for being here with us. And it's been such a joy to have you in the program this year. Wanted to see if you could just describe for a little bit what are some of the things you've taken away this year from the program, and how is it starting to shape the direction your practice is taking?
Yeah. Thanks for asking me to be here. I feel really honored to be in the program, but also to be able to share my experience because I feel like I don't really, it's like I can only talk about it so much with certain people. So it's good to kind of be here and talk about like the things that I've taken away. And I think, some of the biggest parts of my career as an artist were always these big question marks, and I feel like a lot of those question marks are the actual questions that I want to be asking with my artwork. And I feel like through the process of all of it, to be honest, combined with like the philosophy stuff, with the just the how to build a portfolio, and especially with like the art feedback sessions that we have with other artists, it's allowed me to really kind of start looking at my art, not just my career, but like my art in a completely different lens and perspective that is getting me to ask the questions that I want to ask, but I'm asking them to myself, right? And I'm able to kind of then move forward and start applying these thoughts and these new processes to my artwork, which then is now I feel like taking my artwork in a completely different direction, not visually, but I think conceptually, right? And I think
Hmm.
that is one of the things like I wasn't expecting to kind of get out of it. And it's always just, I feel like this kind of constantly building on top of itself. So it always is kind of forming and things are always kind of moving, not with just my art practice, but just the program in general. And I feel like it's a really great way to kind of discover the things that you didn't know that maybe you were missing. I feel like that was a big reason why I wanted to do it, was because I felt like there was a lot of stuff in just my practice that I wanted to kind of explore. And I feel like that's what I'm getting now from the program, especially.
Hmm. I'm curious about the cohort experience. I didn't mention this for the students earlier. We have 40 students currently in the program in this first iteration. They're from 16 countries around the world, with 10 artists per cohort. That means we have 4 cohorts. I have a lot of fun on our Tuesday evening cohorts together. I'm curious what your experience has been like of the cohort and the feedback structure that we've kind of put in place for guiding people through what it means to look at art and respond to it.
Yeah. So the way that the feedback and like the critique structure that you've given us is this kind of outline to kind of go through in how we ask, the presenting artist questions and really kind of balance out, that I think like the talking and the conversation. I think it's set in a way that it creates a really nice dynamic of, like the presenting artist isn't really doing a lot of the talking, which I think is really interesting from just a structure standpoint. But I also really value the fact that like everybody in my cohort, like they know nobody does the everybody does something different, right? And so like I'm able to get a perspective on my artwork to make sure that it lands with people who I want it to land with, right? Like I'm not just constantly like in this like vacuum echo chamber of like only talking to artists that are similar in what I do or my friends, and like these people have, become such a big part of how my work is landing with people and helping me kind of take it to a different level, for the next time I'm presenting it. And so I find that like the way that you've put the artists together was like really successful in that sense, that like everybody's kind of giving a new experience and a new perspective, because we all come from different backgrounds and not just like our practices, but everybody's been like extremely helpful, and it feels great to like give that back too, right? I think it's like to be able to kind of practice giving the feedback, I think allows you to also kind of understand how to accept the feedback too. I think it's like one of the things I wasn't really kind of anticipating, right, when we're kind of sort of going through it. But now it feels like very natural. Like when we kind of hop on, it's, we get into like a really good groove, and it's nice to know that like it's not going to get switched up in 6 months. Like I get to stick with these folks for a whole year, and they get to see where I started and kind of where I'm ending, at the end of the year. So, yeah, I love it. It's a lot of fun. It's a really fun time. Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I feel like in the last 6 weeks, we've like hit a really nice stride where people have enough depth with everyone's work that the kind of feedback you're starting to get is hitting new notes and starting to, I don't know, propel things forward. I really enjoyed your cohort session Tuesday night.
Yeah, and I think too, what's really great now is that now that we're 6 months into it, right? And so like everybody's kind of bringing back projects or things that they're working on that like we've already seen. So I think the really cool thing about that is that the conversation is also changing, right? So like I showed work that I presented, it was like 6 weeks ago, but it's morphed, it's developed, and so like the feedback is also going to be different, right? And so like even though like we're seeing kind of similar projects, it's different in the sense that like they've spent weeks tweaking it and applying things and thinking about the feedback that we've given them. And so it's really exciting to kind of see like, okay, like what is like, hey, we're going to bring this week from the last time. And so the conversations are never the same, which I think is really great. And I think it's proof that like the feedback structure works, right? That like we as artists are able to kind of go back to our studios, work on the things that we want to try or test or didn't even think about, and then kind of bring it back, and then talk about it again, and then it kind of repeats itself. So I think the structure and has created that level of just like a really dynamic conversation that is constantly changing and constantly, I think, improving like everybody in the group, not just the artist that's presenting.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny. One of the cohorts recently, they were in their cohort channel chat in our community app. And they were talking about how nervous some of them used to be for giving feedback, and even still get nervous for not, even though they're not the one in the hot seat presenting work. And I feel like that really, it is a challenge, and rising to it really does start to grow artists. I'm curious about what you would say for artists who are thinking about how 5 to 6 hours per week is a lot of time and material. What would you say to them about how you're fitting this into your life or around it, and still making time to be in the studio making work? How would you set can you set their concerns at ease?
I think it's like I didn't really know, like I knew like how much work it was going to be, but I think like just being able to kind of be flexible and also just be like, I think, kind to yourself. I feel like the first quarter I was like really hard on myself if I like couldn't make it to a thing. But then you have to go back, and then it's kind of being able, the flexibility that I feel like I've had, even though it is a lot of hours to dedicate, like if you can make it work, like make it work. Like I don't know how many, I feel like every time I get on a Zoom call, my background's different because I'm like somewhere, right? I'm like either traveling or I'm like in a different a house or somewhere. And so I think it's like really commit to showing up as much as you can, because you never know what you're going to get out of it, right? Like there was a couple of weeks ago I was talking with Rebecca just about like I was kind of feeling down, and like I was having kind of a hard time just with myself and my practice, and like I showed up, and it was like that was the hard part for me that week, was like showing up. And when I showed up and I kind of had this aha moment with like the lecture and kind of thinking about my practice again. And so it's like, if you can show up and try and make it work, because you're always going to get something out of it, whether it's a lecture or an artist coming in, or if it's your cohort feedback. Like if you can try to make them happen as much as possible, because you never know what you're going to get. And I think that's like the magical part about like all of the different sessions that we have, is like it's exciting to log in because you don't know what's going to happen, you don't know what you're going to take away or what someone else is going to kind of give you to kind of maybe think about and sit like with your own practice. And so I think that the don't be like scared of the time commitment. You just kind of have to lean into it. Like just
Hmm.
lean into it really hard. If you can, like if you can. But I think you brought up a good point. Like I think you really do have to ask yourself, can I commit to this? Because it's not just what you're getting, it's also what you're giving to people too. And so like if you aren't able to show up, that's less that people are in, whether it's your cohort or in the program that aren't getting something that like you're adding value to as well. So yeah, that's a long-winded advice, but I think it's important to think about that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the surprise as well when the different guest speakers come in. And some of those are conversations that I'm helping lead and facilitate. When people visit our website for Artist Commons and they see, the list of team members, it's pretty short right now. And that's because we're very much a program focused around guest speakers and getting art professionals in from across the art world. How has your experience been like with that structure, given that we're not like a traditional school would be like, all right, here are our fixed faculty members, here's the dozen people, you're coming to study with these specific people. What's the effect of the guest speaker model being so front and center been on you?
I think like it's really great that there are so many different people. I mean, it's like we have like the core, like the people who do like the history versus like Rebecca does like the philosophy. So like you do have like a consistency, I feel like, of like lecturers and people that are speaking. And I like that when an artist comes in, it's not just like a one and done thing, right? Like they're going to be here for a couple of weeks talking to you. And I think the diversity of artists that you also have makes it really important to kind of understand that like when you're in the program, like you may not be into this specific art, but that's not what it's about, right? It's kind of about like listening to the in between of the lines, and kind of understanding that like at the end of the day, like we're all here like creating and making art. And so the people that are coming in have also kind of gone through that process too, right? And so what you can pick up from somebody who may have a different practice from you, I think is just as valuable as like again like showing up to like your feedback sessions. And so I think the structure of it, like I find it like pretty I find it pretty easy to kind of like keep track of it. Like I don't ever feel like it's like overwhelming or like I'm confused as to like who's speaking this week. Like you lay it out very clear, and everything is like already like everything's like in the app and everything's like on a schedule. But I think the like range of different backgrounds and practices especially with the artist guest speakers who come in, I think is like really great. And um yeah, I didn't really think about like the website like not having all of this especially like the guest speaker information. But I think it's part of um just like that's part of like I think the like this like not like the secrets of the program, but it's like like you're still kind of developing this whole thing for everybody. But it's also such a solid program already that like what we're going to be doing in 3 months. Like I don't necessarily know, but I know it's going to be good, and I know it's going to be like the progression that you have from when you start to like now it's been 6 months to like where it'll be, has everything to do with the way that like you've programmed and structured everything, because it's very intentional, I would say is the best word to describe it.
Hmm. I love to hear that. Thank you so much, Michael. It's great having you part of the program, and I always appreciate your perspective within our cohort session. So I'm not surprised to hear how thoughtful you are about the program itself as a whole. So thank you so much for being here and sharing part of your
Yeah,
experience with us.
you're welcome. Absolutely.
I'm going to jump over and share just a little bit of what the cohort, what the community app looks like before we turn to Dr. Rebecca Millsap, both she's one of our mentors and our resident lecturer in the philosophy of art, who's coming in a couple times per quarter to talk about how we put meaning into our work and does it mean to make art. So here within the website, we can see this is what students see when they first log in. And We have a general chat section where people come in and chat about the random stuff that's on their minds, whatever they're seeing, reading assignments that we have, art that they're making, shows that they've been to. We have a channel in which artists are sharing their wins each week, what they've been, an exhibition that they got, or an application that they sent in that they're just proud of having accomplished the application, which I think is a win, 100%. We have a section of questions and polls where every week people are prompted to respond. Last week it was about what is an art exhibition recently that meant a lot to you. And this week it's thinking about some of the places where your art practice might feel unresolved that you might want to continue to explore. We have discussion channels in which the lectures, after a lecture, people come in and continue the conversation with the various guest speakers and lecturers that we have, and keep the conversation going outside of the art itself. We have our live sessions channel, which we're down to just 3 this quarter. I haven't scheduled in the new ones yet and revealed who we have coming up. But our next 3 tomorrow, we have a lecture on how to write an artist statement, part 3, and we'll continue to work on that. Our critic Ben Davis coming in next week. And then our current visiting artist in residence, Sasha Stiles, coming in for her 3rd and final session with the students, where we do a candid interview about what it's meant to build a career in the art world. Sasha, if anyone has been to MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York, in the last 6-8 months, she had a major video installation of work in the lobby of MoMA as a living artist. That was up for, I think, 5 or 6 months of time. Like, truly incredible. We're really lucky to have her with us at this particular moment. For any students who can't make the live sessions, we have a whole channel down here of session replays of things that we've done recently. This second quarter of the program, we've done things like how to approach curators and galleries. Our visiting artist early in the semester, Andrew Benincasa, who's a paper cut artist, art history lectures. We often go very specific. We don't want just the general 14-week lecture series you can do. I'm like, here's Modern Art 1, here's Modern Art 2. So this one was on quilting part 1. And it's been really inspiring to see how many artists have taken quilting patterns into their practice in the last few weeks. Actually, the same is true with Sasha's work. Sasha works a lot with text and emergent language models and poetry and language art. And in the last 2 weeks, I've seen artists starting to do more with text than they usually do. So these things trickle out. Our philosophy of art lectures on how does it mean, semiotics this quarter, and I lecture on how nothing is original. In fact, everybody borrows from everybody else. As one art writer put it, right, great artists steal. But we immediately follow that with a lecture from intellectual property lawyer David Shine about the brass tacks of what it means when great artists steal, and how to protect our rights and where the limits of fair use might fall. So those are some of the things we've been doing recently here in the app. Individually, we have our cohorts. Here in cohort 3, they have their own private chat discussion area, a place for sharing work in progress that they're working on, as well as their individual cohort sessions, which are scheduled. This one meets Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern time, because we have artists based in Australia and Oceania that we're really excited, and as well as some artists based in LA and across the US that tune in for that one. So all of it lives here in the app, which is a really good way to be able to interact with one another and feel connected over the course of the week. And like I said, in these lecture discussion channels, keep the conversation going from the session replays and live sessions. So next up, I want to welcome our mentor and philosopher of art lecturer, Rebecca Millsap. Hello.
Hello. Hello, hello. It's great to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much for coming in, Rebecca. Of all the things I planned for this program this year, I think your lectures in particular have been one of the biggest hits across the students. Aww. And I often hear, what is philosophy of art? Like, art is just a thing humans need to make. But then artists sit down and start talking with curators, and curators what does it mean? What is it about? What questions are you interested in? And artists, I find early in their careers, as well as well into them often, are struggling with how to answer those questions. So I really appreciate the way that you have structured your 8 lectures on the philosophy of art over the course of this year. And I was curious if you could just describe a little bit about some of the topics that you've been digging into for our students through those lectures.
Definitely. Yeah. So the way I'm approaching the philosophy of art for Artists Commons is teaching philosophy of art to artists. That's the audience, which is thrilling to me. I am both a philosopher and an artist. My background spans both of those disciplines. I taught philosophy in university for almost a decade, and I specialize in adult learning and how adults learn. But I'm also an artist, and some of my anxieties around these philosophical questions in the arts, in my practice, actually led me to becoming a philosopher. I was persistent enough to continue. So I've been thinking about how can philosophy be useful to artists in their studio, right? How can it be helpful when they're, like you said, talking with gallerists, when they're writing their artist statements? And teaching a traditional philosophy class might be, okay, let's learn about all these different theories. We're going to see, how do they argue against one another? What are the main arguments? But what I'm really interested in is giving every artist, an understanding of the main theories as tools. And I ask 4 questions over the year. So we start off by asking, what am I making? So this is a pretty foundational question. The question is, why is this thing that I've made art? What gives it its artness? Like, what is going on with this, right? Sort of moving from I think I call it art, is that good enough? To really understanding what some of the foundational theories in philosophy provide to answer this question. So we do start with the oldies but goodies. We start with Plato, we start with Aristotle, but we work our way into contemporary philosophical discourse as well. So that first question, what am I making, is all about the ontology or the definition of art. We cover, over that quarter, we cover 8 different frameworks that give different but related answers to the question, why is this art? And I use contemporary, historically relevant artist examples to help us see how these philosophical theories have life, right? They have life in the studio, in the museum. The second question that we asked was, how does it mean? So, we have our intentions when we're making our work, but how does that meaning get transferred out to the viewer? Does it? We hope so, right? So I walk through 8 different key theories on how art has meaning. This is really useful because as an artist, you get to think, where do I show up? How much can I show up in my work to help my audience? We are also thinking about the question of, how do I fit? So this is, you already mentioned the question of originality. Is anything ever original? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about authorship. And the idea there is to, move from this sort of frustrated space of everything has already been done to, I know how I fit in the narratives that exist. And that is a really empowering, that can be really empowering. And then finally, the final question is, why does it matter? So that's a pretty big question. We're going to be talking about value, about the function of art. We're going to be looking at, you don't want to just sit there and say, well, I think it's important, right? Why does your work matter? These theories are going to give you different frames for being able to understand that in your own practice. So those are the 4 questions. I also always put together a toolkit for each quarter that has a review of everything, because some of the information is dense. I mean, it's philosophy. I try to make it as accessible as I possibly can. But, it's not all going to stick in your head. not how learning works. So there's always a toolkit with studio exercises as well. So if you find that a theory or a question really gets you going, these toolkits you can take into your studio to keep that work going beyond the session.
I really love that within those 4 questions, you've broken it down into like consistently so far 8 frameworks each time. And I think, as I understand traditional philosophy circles, it would be a death, a battle to the death. Between these, only one can be left standing. But because you come from this practical approach with your own studio practice as an artist, it's very much like pick and choose what you need when it's useful to you and put down the others. And they don't have to resolve into like one unifying theory. And so I really value the way that you approach teaching philosophy in this context.
Thank you, Haver. I will say that I have really enjoyed creating the lectures for these talks. I am having a really good time. This is, again, I love teaching philosophy. I love art. I love artists, and this is merging those. So I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to teach to this audience and interact with these wonderful students. So I'm just grateful to be here.
They are wonderful. I've had such a good time in our cohorts this quarter, and your joy in this, I think, is one of the reasons that you are coming on as one of our new mentors starting this summer. You're expanding your role, and you'll be the artists who are applying right now, which the application deadline is Monday, just a few days away. They will get paired with one of 2 possible mentors. One option is you, and the other is Robin Morris, who's both a longtime educator and has her master's in art history, and so comes at it from a different slant, which I think is really exciting to get these different perspectives mixed into one program.
I was going to say, I am so excited about taking on this new role and continuing to build out my relationship with Artist Commons. I will say that it is impressive how organized and intentional this entire experience is. I know that Michael spoke to this already, but I want to chime in as well. It really is a fabulously designed experience. And one of my roles in the working world is literally experience designer. So I can say I am very impressed. Coming on as a mentor and being able to engage in really meaningful feedback sessions with artists about their work is incredible. I went to art school. I had the crits. I know how it can go. And this is the methodology that you are teaching in this program is really just like, it's also about good feedback methodology, period, let alone if it's for artworks or if it's to give someone feedback on how they're acting. I think it's really, really foundational stuff. So I'm so excited to work with whoever you are out there. Excited to have you join my cohort and get to know you and get to know your work. I love facilitating and mentoring. So this is a really great opportunity.
You sat in last night on your first cohort to kind of see what that process is like. Before this, you had just done lectures. We had met and talked about program and pedagogy and approaches to teaching. What was your experience like actually seeing the processes in action and hearing the way that the students interacted, as well as giving feedback?
It was very meaningful to see, especially since I'm coming in now, right? I came into this group. They've been meeting for all these months. They know one another. And that's the first thing that I noticed is this camaraderie. And that's camaraderie that's been created across all of this physical distance, right? This is one of the most amazing things about virtual learning, but it's also like virtual learning can be hard. It can be hard to create community virtually, but it was very clear to me that the folks in this cohort knew one another. They were familiar with one another's work. They understood how to talk with one another. And that's very special to see, to connect with people. So first of all, it was just wonderful to see a cohort and like how learning in community creates relation. That's a lot of learning that just happens in communion with others. I think we are not taught how to look You know,
Mm,
like
mhm.
even if you go to art school, like I did, you know, honestly, it can sometimes be sort of taught as like a competitive sport and less like a collaborative endeavor. I don't know if that sounds familiar to anyone, but I think that, you know, when you are an artist, you're making work, you want to hear how what your fellow artists actually really think, but we're also very sensitive. Right? I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but you know, like I want honest feedback, but I also want constructive feedback, and I want to feel cared for, and this specific feedback format allows the artists that shared today to hear what the audience thought with from like as they're coming to the material, and then ask them questions, right? So I think that the artists got to hear things that maybe they were not expecting, which is good. That's what we want. But they were also able to direct the feedback so that it would be actually useful to them. At no time during the session did someone just like go off on a monologue about like their beliefs about, you know, whatever abstract expressionism, la 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 la, right? Which, you know, sometimes can happen in less organized spaces. So I do feel like it's very intentional. There was a lot of care that I could feel being given to the artist's work, between one another. It was a really, I'm very excited to host my own wonderful community. So it was really special.
Mm. Oh, that
I
warms.
will say I felt very grateful to like have been a part of it. Like I was like, thank you so much for letting me sit in on this, because I feel like I got to share in something really special.
Mm. That warms my heart to hear. Thank you so much for those generous words. We are so lucky to have you coming in and expanding your role with the Artist Commons program. And I can't wait for the students to learn from everything that you have to share across both art and philosophy. So thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Haver. Thank you so much.
So let's take a moment. We'll dip back over to our slides, and we're going to take a look at a few more program things before we step through how to fill out a strong application here. So we are a tuition-based program. We're an education program, and we, at the same time, try to make it extremely accessible to as many artists as possible. The tuition for the full year is $2,400 plus tax, and we break that into two parts rather than having you pay for the whole thing upfront. We know that that would bar a lot of artists that we want to be able to support from being able to participate. So we break the payment into a $1,200 deposit to secure your seat in a cohort, and then 10 monthly installments after that of $120 each. And to put that cost in context, it's essentially less than the price of your average college course. And for that, instead of a 14-week class, for which you do get 3 credits for going to college, but here you get an entire year of cohort feedback, one-on-one mentorship every quarter. You get this hands-on, very direct mentorship, and you get twice a week lectures and panels from art world professionals. Having taught many a college class, I know how excited the students are when you get in a guest speaker 1 or 2 times in the course of a semester, but we're doing it on a much more regular basis. We find it's really important to be learning from people who are doing the work in the field we want to be a part of. And you get the visiting artist in residence sessions and get to peer virtually behind their studio door. And then you get this community of peers and this network and the accountability that pushes us forward. So it's one of the most comprehensive I've found programs, while also being accessible for visual artists who I know are often strapped. The financial situation of artists is unkind in this world, I know. We looked at some of the other development programs that are out there that sit outside of traditional art education. And as we looked at the closest comparables we could find, some ran for less time, right? They might be meeting only every other week. The ones that did meet every week cost more than twice as much as our program. And So this is incredibly competitively priced. In fact, the students in my cohorts keep telling me it's underpriced. And honestly, that's part of the goal. It's to make art education accessible to the largest number of people possible, to make art something we can engage with on a daily basis and to find community around no matter where we are in the world. We all do recognize, though, that it's still high based on where you are in the world or what you do for a living outside of your art. So we have a limited number of partial need-based scholarships that are available to help reduce the upfront cost. They go specifically to the deposit you make at the beginning of the program. These range, the scholarships range in size from about $300 to about $1,200. But all artists who apply to the program will need to pay the 10 installments of $120. The applicants can complete the scholarship section at the end of the application. It's built into the application itself. It's not a separate thing you have to do. You just have to get to the end of the application to find it. We encourage you to apply for a need-based scholarship, even if cost is a concern. But just be aware that the scholarships are highly competitive and obviously not guaranteed. But for the application process, it's not about having a perfect portfolio or CV, right? This is about helping us as a team at Artists Commons understand where you are right now and what you're interested in and how you're looking to grow. So the steps are to apply. In the process of applying, you'll get to a portfolio section where you can share individual images. You can share links to the sections of your website that have a portfolio, or you can share a PDF. There are so many different ways to share your work, and we want to make it accessible by supporting all of those. The next step after that, for those that make it to that stage, is an admissions interview, and followed by a decision soon after that, as we start pairing people into cohorts and seeing, again, based on experience level and day and time of cohorts where the overlaps are. For us, what makes a strong application, honestly, it's to be specific, to tell us what you're wrestling with in your practice, not just what you make. Right? This goes back to some of the things that Rebecca starts to teach about what is your art about, and not just the image itself. We find it's helpful to show current work, right? To choose for your portfolio images and project samples that represent where you are now and the questions that you're interested in right now, right? That tells us what you're going to be working on over the course of the year within the program. And then to explain your why, right? To tell us why this kind of structure and community that Artists Commons offers would help you at this point in your art practice. The strongest applications show a commitment to your practice, a genuine curiosity about not just art, but the world. They show an openness to feedback, and that's such a large component of what our program is, and artists that don't feel teachable in that way or open to receiving feedback, again, is not always a great fit with what we offer. And the last thing is a desire to contribute to the community. So don't worry about writing a perfectly polished application. We very much value authenticity and a self-awareness. That matters much more to us than a flawless artist statement that you might write and spend hours and hours on. So next steps is starting to fill out the application, where you can visit the website, which I'll show you in a second, the apply section on the website, and get started today, because the next cohort start July 5th. The application deadline is Monday, June 15th, 2026. You can also start preparing your materials. We have some short essay questions in there that you'll need to answer about your practice, as well as the portfolio portion of, again, images, links, or a PDF. We do have 2 opportunities per year to join a cohort. New cohorts for us start every January and July. So we do that onboarding at that regular cadence right now. And I'm excited, again, to see what you guys are all working on. So let me flip over, and I'm going to show you just a little bit of the website here and the application process. So tucked up here is the apply button in our menu. If you go there, it loads up our form and gives you some more information, a lot of which I told you today about admission deadlines and tuition and what you'll need in the process. Once you click through to next, you can start filling out the individual pages. And since I'm not going to fill this out live for you, I'm going to flip over to a different view and just show you what the application actually looks like on the deeper pages that you might not have seen yet if you've started to get there but haven't gone there yet. So on Next, right, you can see that there are 8 sections. The first is our intro text, but there's 7 sections broken up for you to be able to fill out in parts what you're doing. So basic info about yourself, who you are, where you live, your online presence. We are an English language-based program, and we are very heavily based in verbal feedback. So it's important to us that people apply, feel comfortable doing that in English within the program. We hope to support other languages in the future, and so we have a section where you can check an option here to fill out other languages that you speak, if you speak any, and that helps guide us for future support. When you go to the next page, you start getting into disciplines. You can check as many of these apply, right? You might focus in drawing and ceramics. We gave a lot of options. It's obviously not comprehensive. There is an other box over here where you can check and fill out a text field for yourself there. Describing your primary discipline. And then we get to the question, this is the most important question in the whole application. We even say that, literally right there. This is the most important essay question in this application. Tell us what you've been exploring with your work over the past few years. It's 1,500 characters is the minimum, not 1,500 words. So it's not terrifying. It's actually fairly short. But you have to fill that out to be able to get to the next page and start moving forward. We're interested in the questions that you're asking in your practice and what you want to explore with the work that you're doing in the recent past, the past few years, as well as coming into a program like this. So there's more questions about Medium. Then we get into goals, right? What are 3 goals you have for your art practice this year? Some options to check here. What's getting in the way of achieving those goals, right? It could be budget and funding. It could be studio space. It could be purely focus and attention. This gets the sense of what you need and how Artist Commons can serve you. And then we just ask that explicitly. What would you most like to get from a year with Artist Commons? There's no real character limit on these. You can write whatever you find is most accurate and helpful to your practice. Selected works is our portfolio section. You can upload that as a portfolio, where you can share a link and paste that in, or you can upload a file and choose to share that as a PDF instead. We ask you to explain a little bit about the materials you're working with. There is another character count here if you're filling out the portfolio version. If you go for individual projects, you can share 2 or 3 projects. They each need 10 to 15 images each when you upload, and you can do that again as a shared link or uploading files, so JPEGs or PDFs there. So when we get to the next section, we get into information about the cohorts. Within this, you're telling us what time zone you're in. So again, we can start to align cohorts together. All of our times listed here are available times when we're considering making cohorts for this year. You'll want to put check marks next to as many of these as apply to you. The more you fill out, obviously the easier it will be for us to find a cohort that fits if we want to offer a spot in a cohort to you. So fill out as many of those as you can, but that's the key information there for that. And then we bring up the time commitment again. All right, can you attend 5 to 6 hours worth of material and commit to that per week? And this includes the Sunday discussion groups, yes or no, or I can attend the lectures and panels live at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or I need to watch lectures and panels as an asynchronous replay. And you can choose those and explain a little bit about that. But the most important thing is just simply checking the box and saying I can commit to watching and participating in 5 to 6 hours of material per week. And then the last page of the application is the scholarship itself. These are need-based scholarships, and if you express a need by clicking yes here, you can select how much you are looking to apply for, what is the minimum scholarship amount that would make it possible for you to participate. And we ask that people select the lowest amount that would genuinely make participation possible. so that we're able to give the largest number of scholarships and admit the largest number of artists each batch of cohorts that we do each January and July. By checking that yes button, you go from a very short page to having a lot of additional questions to answer. This is the largest number of essay questions in here because, again, these are very competitive, the scholarships. So things like, in a few sentences, please share why the support of the scholarship is needed, what feels most original or distinctive about your practice right now and why, name 3 artists your work is in dialogue with, and what would this scholarship make possible for your work over the next year, and how would it change your practice? So those are the things we're curious about in your practice. It takes some time, it takes some doing. So if you are interested in this program, again, our new cohorts start July 5th, and the application deadline is this Monday, June 15th, generally by midnight that night, but we're roughly flexible. We're not going to look at them until the next morning, if I'm being honest. We're going to close out by taking a quick look at a video that one of our students recorded for us who wasn't able to attend today, and then close out by talking with one other artist in the program and student. So here's the little clip.
So I'm Nick, I go by Chum Wizards, and I thought I would take a moment to really talk about my experience with the Artist Commons. One of the big things that I can say, the Artist Commons is a program that's great if you're trying to really dig deeper with your art, not just make pretty pictures, but have some true meaning and significance that people can connect with outside of just being your friend. Then this program is definitely for you. It's also a great program to learn more about the history of art and be able to look at art critically and appreciate art in ways that you probably haven't before, and have those discussions with other artists and other people that appreciate art deeply as well. And I think more than anything, that's one of the biggest things that I've gained from this experience is being able to have those conversations, because there is so much that you learn when you can bounce ideas back and forth with other artists and other art appreciators. So if the Artist Commons is something that you are looking to because you're trying to expand your art just beyond making pictures, then I highly suggest giving it a try.
Nick is one of my favorite people in the program. He is such a supportive and generous artist, asking such great questions during feedback sessions and just genuinely showing up in the community app, in the text chat, and pulling people out of their shells. I think there's this moment right now with social media where we're feeling particularly tired of it, and our hope is that people replace their habit of picking up their phone and checking Instagram or TikTok or X or Blue Sky or wherever you're spending your time on social media these days, and instead pick it up and engage with this community of artists who are generous and caring with one another. And Nick really exemplifies that in his practice. So let me pull up our last visiting artist for today. Layla, thank you so much for being here. I think you're, let me see here. Yes, I can still hear you now. Great.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can. Thank you so much for being here. I always really enjoy what you have to contribute in our cohort sessions and within the chat. I'd love to just close out by hearing from you about what your experience has been like digesting and experiencing the wide breadth of material that we cover through the lectures and panels each week.
First, I want to say thank you for asking me to come here and give a little bit of my experience in the program. The cohort feedback has been amazing. Not only on the on doing a feedback on my work, but on the other artists. And sometimes I make connections with the feedback they're getting. I'm like, oh, that's happening in my work over here. So I think that back and forth, that it's not directly to you, it's to someone else. It also helps us like to start looking at artwork, and having those conversations there have been really good. And I think that's something I was missing I think since college we didn't have those sessions, and it's so caring. Also, I'm thinking about what the other like artists said before and what Rebecca said. I think there's an intention in the program, like, and nobody ever taught us how to critique an artwork before, and you went through the process. You told us how to say what we wanted to say without saying I don't like that or I love that. Only like what's behind it. What is it that is bothering you? What is it that you do love about that work? The whys. So we have to just go deeper in our own thoughts and our brain, like what we have to make those connections to give it the proper feedback. And the program and the course in general, I'm enjoying it quite a lot. I really like the art history classes, and I like them because they're not necessarily European or centered in the United States. I think a lot of times we take art history and it's always like the same things here and there, but it's our historian that has come with the expertise. They all go all over the world. They look at art groups or art scene, not only in Europe or the United States, but in South America, in Asia, in Africa. They're making those connections. And I think for people that we're not there, living, up north, that's refreshing when you hear the mention of an artist that or when you hear when we're talking about the embroidery, someone from Japan, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna look into that. So I think that's really wonderful because it expands our perspective. It's not just this little group of reference, but it's the whole world. Also, the philosophy classes have been really good because they make us look into our own practice and sort of critique ourselves, like what are we doing, what do we want from this, what do we want the audience to see this, do we really want to do paint this area red? It's really, do we really want that because we want it or because he needs it? What's the reason behind that? And I think a lot of times we forget about the meaning of the work, or how to choose the fabric if you do an embroidery, what paper if you're gonna print something. I think those are important details that sometimes they go unspoken in an art school. But here we talk about the details. We talk about everything that is within the art making, and I think if we want to be professional artists, and I'll throw that word in there, we gotta do we gotta do the work. We gotta walk the path. We can't just get up in the morning and be like, oh, I'm just gonna do this little tree here and I'm gonna paint it. It's gonna come out pretty. We gotta do the hard work of going out, looking at reference, who's doing it, who has done it before us, who's doing it right now, and how, what techniques are they using. Do I want to use watercolors? Do I want to use code? How do I want to make this tree? What's best for the artwork and what I want to express? And I think in the program you're giving us the freedom to just go a little crazy, but also reel us back. Don't go all out. Just don't go crazy on your ideas, because we all the artists, we have crazy ideas. We could do wonderful things and then not finished, and you reel us back. You're like, no, come back this way. What about this part? What about this other thing? That's really helpful. That's a lot. I had a lot of notes of what I wanted to say, and I just so much more I want to say about the program, and the word intention. I think everything is with intention here. So if you let us run free, it's because an intention. If you reel us back, it's an intention. The feedback section, an intention, and also the respect for each one of us in our own practice and in our own crazy little worlds as artists, which is it's wonderful to have, really. So thank you for this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my joy. It really came out of the studio visits. I mean, we did a studio visit together years ago over Zoom, because you're based in South America and I'm based here in New York. And so it is amazing to be able to connect through this community with artists that are all over the world and get out of our little bubble, both, like you said, by engaging with different artists from art history. I was thinking of recent discussions we've had about Ligia Clark or Do Ho Suh as two of my recent favorites that we've been discussing. And I'm curious, one of the questions I get pretty consistently from artists who are interested in applying to the program is they want to know about like success stories. They want to know about how has it like changed your practice or what doors has it opened participating in this, which is not something I feel like I can promise. That again starts to feel like a scammy trade school that is like, you will get such and such number of exhibitions if you come to our program. Like we can't know, but I am curious to hear, like, as we've sat down for our mentor meetings and workshop your portfolio and set goals for the year, and you've workshopped work in the cohort feedback sessions, like what doors are starting to open for you and how has it changed what you've been making and what's been possible?
First of all, I want to say confidence. I think we need confidence to apply to a program and to feel like, oh, you know what, I could go there. I could apply to this gallery or this program at this open call. So I think a lot of times artists, we lack the confidence. Sometimes the work is there, but we are not there ourselves because we don't know how to write an art statement. And it seems that it's just such a hard thing to do. And then you just go, well, what is it, an art statement to begin with? So I think that's the first thing that the program is build our confidence, and to me, I think that's the biggest success, because I applied to a museum show that I have not gotten back any response back yet. I'm supposed to get it back soon, and I check on my email constantly the past few days. But I applied. I who had never done that before, and in that process of applying, I learned so much about the work that I was doing. The series is called Portraits in Winds, which it's an ID photo that gets the pixels get displaced by winning the speed of wind in real time of of the people that are taking the portraits home city. And I think preparing for that and having the confidence to say, you know what, I'm just gonna go for it, and whether I get it or not, I think that was a win. That was a major win for me. Because it gave me the confidence, and I knew the words to use, and I was like, I could do this. And then the feedback sections, when I spoke to everyone about it, I realized as well about this work in particular, that the reference that I was showing in that work, it was way too local to like my country, sort of like Chile. I'm based in Santiago, Chile now. And then the people in the feedback section, they were missing it. And I was like, oh, I need to mention that in my statement about the work. So I really like that, making those realizations. Also, learning that I am a bilingual. I speak Spanish and English. I have a portfolio in Spanish and I have one in English. I can just translate it. That's what I was doing before. I was just translating one thing to, if I wrote it in English, I would translate it to Spanish. If I wrote it in Spanish, I would translate it to English. I think in the feedback session, I realized I can't do that anymore. I have to know my audience. So if it's going to be in English, who is it going for? And make the statements based on what they're going to connect, and make the Spanish one on what they're going to connect. I'm not changing the concept of the work. It's just the way to explain it is different for each audience in the different languages. I applied on sort of a friend of mine said, listen, there's an open call. I think we were good at it. And I looked at it, I was like, I'm gonna apply. And because the program, and I had our statement ready, I had my biography ready, everything was in Spanish. So I have Spanish and English. So I just had to grab from here and then send it. And I just got the email on Friday that I got accepted. So that was awesome because I was able to do it so fast. It would have taken me months before this program. I would never had anything ready. So I would have had to go back each time and just you guys said, just have it ready. And I did. So I think whether we get a call back or not, where we get accepted or not, that's just missing the point. The point is to be ready for it, to be ready to the application and apply it as many places as possible, and something's gonna happen. And and on that note, I think my work, I'm developing a body of work now. Before I was doing work, I was doing lots of work. I was constantly doing things and different things and new things, and experimenting with different techniques. Now I'm conscious about that. Like, I want to develop a body of work that is cohesive. How do I do embroidery as well? So how do I connect that embroidery with the pixels moving in an images with wind speed in real time? So I think that's also make me think about those things and look for reference, who's done it before and how it's done.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on this. I think that's because it's been such a big change. And to be very fair, I have taken courses before and all this, and I have learned. I mean, I believe I told you that how to make a portfolio. I have taken courses how to make a portfolio, but when you said to us, you taught us how to name the file, and that was mind blowing to me. I was like, oh my god! Like, I had really good people teaching me how to do a portfolio, but no one ever told me how to name the file of each photographs of each artwork. And I thought that was just amazing. Those little details that sometimes are skipped.
Right.
You make sure
How
that we know that.
Yeah, how easy it is for your images to end up out of order if you're naming things in a certain way versus another. And suddenly the story you're trying to tell with your art doesn't work. Well, I really appreciate the diversity of mediums that you work in and how you're finding ways to merge them together into this. I mean, you kind of alluded also to your photography background as well, which is also showing up in there, and finding a way to make a body of work out of that that is cohesive across mediums is really inspiring. I'm so excited for you and everything you're accomplishing this year. So thank you for your enthusiasm about the program and for everything you share in your cohorts. It's really wonderful to have you with us, Layla.
Oh, thank you. I'm having a great time, and thank for all the artists that are in the program because they're making this to be a great program to be part of.
Well, that's our time, friends. I see a couple of questions have been dropped into the chat, so I'm going to knock through those. If you have a question that we haven't answered yet, please drop it in there. We'll stay on for just a couple more minutes because we've kind of gone for 90 minutes now, which is about where we wanted to wrap this up. We got one question, which is where do participating artists share their work with one another? That would be in the community app. We try to keep everything central within that one app, which works on both mobile, across both iPhone and Android, as well as on desktop. Like I can log in through any web browser and access it as well. So I like that central place. Again, it gives us a real hub for the community, which is away from social media, away from trolls and obnoxious people outside of that who don't. It allows for a vulnerability that I think is really important in how we grow as artists. And you can start to hear from the artists who shared today about their experience, the generosity of this community, even as we push each other to go further with what we're doing. That said, I will say that our artists are connecting on social media as well. I often go on other platforms and see the comments of people who didn't know each other before this program, connecting with one another, championing things, retweeting people when they share their work and helping get it out there in the world. And so it really is building a community and a network, which is how I found in my own research as an art historian how the best art movements got made. They happened in community and through relationships. So that is part of what we're trying to build here. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. I hope you'll consider applying for the Monday deadline. Feel free, if you have any questions, to email our program administrator, Laura, at team@artistcommons.art. Again, her email address is team@artistcommons.art. Sometimes we both reply from there, but Laura is our first front-facing person. Or feel free to DM us on Instagram or whichever social media platform you're using. The last thing I'll say here is that Rebecca alluded earlier to the fact that we're both really invested in how adult learners learn, right? The pedagogy, the philosophy of education. And as some of you might know, we are on 8 social media platforms right now, including TikTok and YouTube. posting daily vertical videos, little snippets from our lectures. And this isn't just marketing, and it's not just there to inspire you, the outside community who hasn't gotten a chance to experience the program yet. It is actually designed first and foremost for our community of artists, because as Rebecca said earlier, we are sharing these 90-minute lectures that sometimes are very dense, that require returning to, taking notes while watching. And so sharing a little clip from that a week or two after the lecture is actually education reinforcement. It's one of our pedagogical approaches to making sure that people can continue to deepen their understanding of the ideas that we're teaching within the program. So you're really in real time getting to experience an important part of how the program functions. I would encourage you to follow us on whichever social media platform you're using. The handle for that is @artist_commons. That's true on every single platform. I love that in the last week, our videos about Dada art artists from the early 20th century have blown up on TikTok. It warms my heart and encourages me that people care about strange, esoteric art things in these communities, and is not as bleak a world as I sometimes make it out to be. So thank you again for being here. We look forward to seeing your applications, getting to know you and your body of work and the questions that you're interested in exploring this year. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.